Oh, sure. Well, let's take a look at a couple, how they come together. Everybody always tells you in negotiation theory, come up with a plan, where you want to be, how you're going to anchor, what you're going to do for your concessions, all that kind of stuff. A few things. You now know that most civil cases have 7 rounds, not moves, both sides, but 7 rounds on both sides. How do you get there? How do you land the plane if you know you want to get to X? The problem, the anchoring is important. We know that first numbers matter. That's why car dealers put sticker prices on cars that nobody ever pays. They just starting the conversation. Same thing with negotiations. So your attention is knowing the local market. What's the local fishbowl? It's in-group, out-group behavior. So different markets, different segments of the bar. Construction bar is going to be different than the IP bar. That's different than the PI bar. You got to know what the market is. And there's 2 dangers. You got a tightrope to walk. If the anchor is too high, obviously you lose some credibility. And you got to really get off of it the next round. By the same token, if you're in a 7X jurisdiction where you're supposed to really shoot the moon and everybody have a good laugh and then make a big concession in round 2, and you don't do it, and you come in with more like a 3X that you're used to playing at home, well, guess what happens? Everybody kind of nods and thinks, oh boy, Joe is really good. I'd heard that before, but he really got these people to come around to our way of thinking. But then what happens in round 2? These guys are in a 7X jurisdiction. They're used to a huge move from round 1 to 2. And because they've come in at 3, they haven't got a lot of room, so what do they do in round 2? They come back with a small concession. So then what happens? Now you got blowback the rest of the day because people are used to getting large stacks of funny money in concessions, and it doesn't happen. And you actually get more cognitive resistance because you're not playing the in-group behavior game than you would. So what do? Say, okay, I got to know my local market. I can test out my concession strategy. Everybody says to do that, but nobody tells you how to do it. It's not linear. You can't say, oh, I'm going to give them $50,000 every 40 minutes until the end of the day. That'll work for a certain period, but it won't work all day because we all know what happens. Here's a graph of it. Here's an injury case. These graphs have been normalized. Don't get hung up in the numbers. But usually, as you know, the plaintiff's going to make the opening bid, defendant's going to respond, and then look not so much for the numbers, but the slope of the lines. Because if we were dividing that earlier curve you saw of the judges and the bounce, metabolic bounce,